Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sunday Talks Within a Nine-Sided Circle. Today is April 26th, I think it is, right?
It's the 26th.
Yeah, I can't see very well over here. Yeah, so here we are, another Sunday where we have our hour-long talk with all of us involved. It's a very special time because we all get to spend quality time together. But anyway, I am one of your hosts, Nora Kyle, and I am in Los Angeles.
And I am the other one of your hosts, Mushtaq Ali, and I am either in the Bay Area or White Sands, New Mexico.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that is really.
Yeah, that's a hop, skip, and a jump from where I used to live. That's where I grew up.
Wow, nice.
I grew up just up the mountain from that. It has its nice points, including the bottomless lake.
Damn.
Yeah, but it's also just a few miles from Trinity site.
Yeah.
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 So you can go and see where the first atomic bomb ever was set off.
So, do you want to do our YouTube spiel real quick?
All right, let me spiel you with YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're not watching this on YouTube, either way, it doesn't matter. Look down there, and do consider subscribing to us, because then you will get to know when we put these things out. And these days we're pretty much putting out videos daily.
Mm-hmm.
Every day we put something out, usually just for 5 or 10 minutes, Sundays for a long time, and hit the old notifications button so you know when we put them out. That's very important. Not everybody knows when we put them out, only the people who ask to be notified. And yeah, we would love to have you. And we would love your comments. And we would love you to hit that like button. We'd like to be liked. We're very insecure.
And you can join our mailing list down below in the description, because we've started making sure that we have those details in so that it's very easy to get in touch with us.
Yes, join our mailing list. We will send you things. Not many things, but we will send you things.
So what are we talking about today, Mushtaq?
Today we're talking about vitality. And I usually start this talk with going to the people who are listening, hey, have you ever noticed how hard it is to change? I mean, to really change in a permanent way? And what do you think? Is it hard to change?
Yeah, generally.
Hola, Zainab. ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien.
See, we are all multilingual around here.
All right. So, vitality.
Vitality, yes.
And change.
So, here is the hard truth, that in order to affect permanent change, real change within oneself, one's energy must be above a certain threshold. One's vitality must be above a certain threshold. Until you reach that threshold, you do not have the energy to actually create permanent change. Scary, huh? And we owe it to ourselves to not dissipate our energy, to not drain our vitality, so that we can make the changes that we need to make. As an analogy or a metaphor or something like one of those things, think of, here you have two electric poles, and you increase the current in one of them until it has enough current buildup that it jumps across the gap to the other pole, creating a spark gap. It won't do that until it has the right amount of current, no matter how much you want it to. And our ability to actually change patterns and habits is a little bit the same way. We have to free up and contain our own vitality so we can jump that gap. So that's the basic theory. Anybody want to argue it? Damn it.
No. No. I mean, I have thoughts about how the times we find ourselves in, those can be, you know, crises can be either energizing or draining.
Yeah, more often draining for most
Yeah.
people most of the time. I mean, I'm pretty good at this, and I find that I have to really be mindful to not let my energy dissipate into crisis thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, how do the rest of you feel about that? I mean, where do you guys find yourselves? Are you struggling to get motivated to do things? Are you getting stuck in, like, you know, loops where you're focusing on danger and fear and things like that? What's going on for you guys? Like, Ilmar, where are you at?
Where am I at? I'm here in Oceanside, California.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that comes to my mind is that the amount of energy you would need to produce change depends probably also in part upon how much charge you're bringing to that area, you know, how turbulent that whole area is for you. And I find that, you know, as I watch my mind operate and watch the interpolated aspects of it and let them calm down, it's easier to then actually produce some change also, you know. So it seems to be dependent both upon the degree of change needed and also upon the blockages in terms of, you know, charge, interpolated energy, whatever the hell they might call it, you know.
Yeah, there's definitely a correlation there, without a doubt. The biggest changes require the biggest energy. An example for me, I learned to smoke cigarettes when I was very young, before we knew that it was bad for us. We had doctors saying, we recommend Camels, right? Some of us remember that. And so quitting smoking after I was completely addicted to nicotine required that I marshal a huge amount of energy, a huge amount of vitality to do that very thing. And it was an amazingly interesting struggle. I have seen people quit heroin with less trouble than I've seen people quit cigarettes.
Did you need to take a look at what it is that caused you to actually go to cigarettes as a solution in the first place? Or is it just a matter of overcoming the habit once you spotted the habit?
Well, there was no particular negative thing that made me smoke. I mean, I can look at it and go, oh, I learned to roll cigarettes when I was 10 because my grandfather had arthritis in his hand, so he taught me to roll his cigarettes for him. So I was like very natural, and I always found rolling cigarettes to be comforting in a strange way. When I was a kid, everybody smoked. You got to remember how that was when there was an ashtray by everybody's hand, and you walk into a house and every adult is smoking cigarettes. You get addicted just from the secondary smoke in those situations. So there's no one thing I could point at that goes, oh, this neurotic thing made me smoke. I mean, there was I want to be cool and be accepted, and the cool kids all smoke cigarettes. But,
yeah, and sometimes it seems like, especially for guys, there's kind of a pressure. You know, part of being masculine is to be smoking at that period of time.
Oh yeah, it was I'm from the West, so the whole Marlboro Man thing,
right,
is was a big deal.
Because I'm finding there's a huge amount of pressure on, especially on guys. I imagine a similar pressure on women. You know, to to sort of repress whatever feelings you might have and just go with whatever is considered to be the masculine solution, just to be accepted, I guess, primarily.
Part of being masculine is taking risks.
Right. And what's a little cancer here and there will come down the road someplace, right?
Yeah, that's more new. Like I said, when I was a kid, I probably started smoking around age 13.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, nobody knew about the whole dying of cancer thing, except the government and the tobacco companies.
And they hit it well, right?
Yeah.
And the Nazis.
The Nazis knew that?
Yeah, they did questionnaire research or something, and they did a anti-smoking campaign for the Aryans, and of course nobody in the West wanted to know about it because of the Nazis, and so it had to wait till we did our own research.
Oh, damn.
Interesting.
That I didn't know.
No, I never heard of that one.
Yeah, Nazis should smoke.
I was fortunate in having a mother who smoked, and so whenever I was in a car, there was this horrible smell of wet tobacco. Between that and my grandmother's peeing in her pants,
Oh my God, Omar.
it got me thoroughly off that.
Oh, yikes. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, my early memories are all good. I mean, sitting out, my home was a little rancheria, and it had 4 houses on it. My family, 2 sets of aunts and uncles, and my grandparents. And in the center, because the houses were on the 4 corners, there was a cottonwood grove that had tables and a place for an open fire and stuff. And me and my grandpa sitting and me rolling cigarettes for him while he's talking and having a good time. That's a old and pleasant memory for me. So it's just the opposite.
Now, what if it takes pleasant associations like that to get into some of these habits?
Could be. And then, there's the social interaction that goes with it. Because you will notice if you're in a group of smokers, everybody lights up at the same time. That was always an interesting thing. I once had a couple come to me for couples counseling back when I was doing those sorts of things. And they had a really good relationship, and then they didn't. And they couldn't figure out why. But they had both quit smoking. And what we figured out was that lighting up a cigarette was their signal to each other that it was time to hang out and talk. And without the cigarette, they didn't have that signal to go, oh, we need to talk about things now. Yeah, we set up you can use this signal and talk about things, and it all got better. But we're back to vitality.
Yeah.
So if we take it as a working hypothesis that you need to raise the level of vitality up in order to create permanent change within your system, that asks us to find the answers to certain questions. First is, how do you do it? And where do you store it? How does it build up? The answer to the second is in your body. Where else would it go? Your level of vitality is entirely in your body. And the more smoothly your body operates, the more vitality you can store. Does that make sense?
Not completely. I mean, what the hell do you mean by vitality there? Is that some sort of fluid that you store someplace? I mean, I would assume it's more like a potential energy, right?
Not necessarily potential, other than you might not be using it much. Think of it as your overall sense of aliveness, awakeness, being in your body. I don't have really good ways to describe it, but I know it when I see it, and I even know it better when I feel it.
Do you actually feel it in your body? Or
Yes,
do
you
just
actually
feel vital and
you
ascribe
actually
it to your
feel it
body?
in your body. I notice it by the sense of awakeness that I have at any given time. The sense of what my senses are taking in. How aware am I of my environment?
But there's also a sense of mental alertness, right? And you're
Yes.
ascribing that to the body also.
Yeah, and that's like the same thing to me.
Okay.
The mental alertness, where else are you going to have that but in your body?
I mean, that gets into questions of metaphysics, but you know, but I see what you're saying. You know,
Yeah. Dave, what do you think? You know about bodies?
One or two things, yes.
Lay it on us.
I agree. So for me, there's ways to see and test these things, at least in how I go out about things, but I make a distinction between kind of two, at least different polarities. So what I've found, at least in my experimentation, is you can get enhanced vitality by the repatterning of habits, which I think Mushtaq is just talking about now. Or you can use specific practices, quite often breathing exercises, to enhance energy that way. And the interesting thing for me I've seen is that if you do the breathing exercises, so if you do generative before you have done or without concurrently doing repatterning, it creates mutation patterns. So the person supercharges aspects of their falsi rather than dissolving it with these techniques that are meant to aid for dissolving. So not only the enhancing of vitality, but which particular eye is doing that is extremely important.
And I think that you are absolutely correct in that. I am minded of a line from the Spanda Karika, which says, that which brings the yogi to enlightenment enslaves the common man. And this is, that seems to me to be close. I would say that there's one more thing, of course, because we always look for the three, right? So both of those things that you mentioned, I think are absolutely correct. And I think that we also need to include right and wrong use of energy within the centers.
I agree.
that sounds right. And yet, in my own experience, sometimes I feel the most vital when I blow some confusion, some mental confusion, or some emotional charge. Now, I mean,
That would make sense.
yeah, but
When you blow
that
off confusion, you're learning something.
I'm sorry, what?
When you blow off confusion, you're learning something.
Exactly, you know, and I'm coming. When I get an insight or when things fall into place, now I can theoretically ascribe that to the body, but it's primarily a mental process. Which
where is your mind?
Of course, no, but that's that's the. I mean, I mean, in some sense, of course, everything is in the body, and everything's in the physical universe. But it's sometimes it's these what we would normally call mental processes, which create, at least in my case, sometimes even more vitality than doing a particular exercise with the body.
I would submit to you that your mental processes are entirely dependent on what's going on in your body.
Probably true, and
almost undoubtedly. If you doubt it, eat nothing but sugar for a week.
Yeah, I've tried that actually. One of my main addictions is to sugar. It certainly does not improve my mental function.
Yeah. So it's sort of like Maslow's hierarchies, but in your body. If you don't take care of the basic building blocks of your system, nothing above the basic building blocks is going to work correctly.
Right.
So once you get the basic building blocks taken care of, then you got to clean out the pipes. You got to do the stuff that Dave does and do all of these releases and get things flowing again. Once you do that, then you can start doing things like going, oh, where am I routing my energy incorrectly? You know, where am I using my sexual energy for mental energy? Or where am I using my emotional energy for physical energy? Things like that. But I think that there's a very important hierarchical structure that needs to be recognized in this. What do you think, Dave? Am I talking out of my ass or am I onto something?
Yeah, it correlates with what I've seen so far, and I haven't seen everything. It depends. So when people say physical exercises, there's so many orders of that. Like a lot of times people will be talking about, I've tried this and it hasn't worked, and I look at them and I can tell very clearly they haven't done this exercises as I teach. Maybe they've done some other ones. And so different orders of exercise do different things. And it really is a very fascinating time to be alive, because I have lots of colleagues who themselves have gone very deep into certain systems, and I can see, wow, he's got or she's got this set of qualities and completely absent the ones I'm talking about, and yet we've been going to the same ponds to fish, maybe a few different ones. And so there's a lot of stuff happening here that's not really being talked about, and some of it you cannot talk about unless you are experienced in a number of the ponds simultaneously, or you'll get error. You'll say, well, I do that, but then it's clear that you don't, by how the body is configured and how the habits configure around activities and speech and mind.
Yep, and I think you're making an important point there, because not all exercise is the same. And there is probably a hierarchy there. Myself, I would put the most basic exercise that people should do in most cases is walking. That's like way down at the bottom platform of whatever exercise hierarchy there is. And then you go up from there. And you also have to be sure of your goals. If your goals are bodybuilding, to create a particular image, you are not going to be doing the same exercise as if your goal is health, or if your goal is huge amounts of vitality in your body.
Just in ordinary life, there is a difference of emphasis between feeling more vital physically, emotionally, or mentally. And okay, it's all in the body, but when I think about it, where is mental energy in the body?
I don't think where is the right question.
Okay.
The right question is there mental energy in the body?
Well, there's such a thing as at least mental flavored energy.
How quickly do you process information?
Some kinds very fast, some kinds very slowly.
So when you're processing quickly, you probably have more of whatever mental energy is than if you are processing slowly.
Yeah.
So that's a matter of is. Where, it's in your whole body. It's holistic. It's in your blood, your endocrine system, your digestive system, your nervous system. It's in all of these places. You know, you can't point to a fluid and say, oh, there's your mental energy fluid. You can point to a holistic effect that in that case we can measure by how effectively and how quickly you can process information both internally and externally. Same with emotional energy. How effectively can you process your emotional data? How easily can you form and break empathy with another person? It's got to be both.
Mm-hmm.
So not just forming empathy with another person and keeping it. Sometimes you have to let that connection go too, or you're going to go crazy.
So do you feel it takes energy to do that?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So there's kind of an inertia factor then too.
Yes.
So if you're going to use speed of processing, either emotional or
Speed and effectiveness of processing.
effectiveness
Two
of
things.
processing,
Yeah.
as a test for the degree of vitality you have.
That's just for mental.
Okay, but even in that case, it clearly depends upon the topic area. If it's an area that I'm quite charged about, I'm going to take a lot longer to process information there than in an area that I'm not charged about.
Probably.
So it's not a generic measure, it's more a measure of, you know, for this particular area of domain of concern, I am pretty much on top of it, and for this area of concern, I'm bogged down under
So you have a block to
almost or whatever the hell, you know.
Well, if you're feeling like, you know, emotionally activated by a subject, let's say, an expenditure of energy is happening around your emotional experience of that subject matter. So energy is going to be expended as a result of that, as well as whatever effort you're trying to channel into focusing on that topic in a more emotionally detached sort of, you know, intellectual, cognitive sort of way. Like, the thing about being in a body is that all of our systems are interconnected. And I think we all know that intuitively, but it's hard to be aware of that in our daily activities, and we forget. So
and it's hierarchical.
Yeah. And I think it also depends on like what is actively happening in a given moment.
Yeah. So with your example, Ilmar, physical energy trumps emotional and mental energy. Mental energy trumps, or emotional energy trumps mental energy. So if you get on a subject that has a charge, it's not going to be an intellectual charge, it's going to be an emotional charge, 99 times out of 100. For example, the big ones here in the States are like gun control, right? If you want to see a bunch of rational people in every other area get irrational, bring up that subject. And what you get is emotional responses that completely overwhelm their cognitive abilities. Abortion is another one. People don't think on either side of that issue when that issue is brought up. They emote, and then they play back tapes of what they feel good about when they're emoting.
And
So,
is your suggestion then that if they raise their vitality level far enough, then even when they're speaking about gun control, they would do that rationally? Is that what you're suggesting?
maybe, I don't know. People should give it a try and see what happens. You have to use your emotional energy, you have to use your vitality to break the blocks first. It's not going to happen automatically. That's the whole point of this, is that your inhibitions that act as blocks to your energy are going to bog the process down, and you will not be able to change unless you have a certain threshold of, for lack of a better term, vitality. So it may take a lot of work to get that threshold of vitality up to the point where you can examine something that is a real hot button for you, like say gun control. That seems to get everybody in the United States upset, one way or the other. I can count the times that I have had rational discussions on that subject on the fingers of one hand.
Okay, so you're suggesting that, and as far as I know, I agree with that, that as you increase your vitality, you're more able to deal with some of these blocks, right?
Yes.
I wonder to what degree also your ability to focus on a particular block plays a role. In other words, you have, let's say you have a limited amount of energy and you have a dozen different blocks. I mean, some of us approach those blocks in a dispersed manner, you know, let's tackle them all. And others of us approach the blocks by identifying where the block is and which particular block we want to deal with now. and we can focus our energy on that. Do you see that as being a factor?
To a certain extent, I think that the blocks that we have to deal with have to be approached first holistically, and secondly, as if we were playing a game of Django. You know, it's like, can I move this block?
Oh, Jenga, yeah.
Yeah. No pun intended, but.
Bill had some comments he's been typing
good.
in.
Dr. Bill!
You know, we were talking about this duality that we have reified in our culture between, you know, separation of the mind and the body and such. I think that's what he's referring to there.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if we're going to talk about vitality, we're going to talk about energy. Everything you do is going to consume and require energy. If you're running on low, you don't have much. If you've got more to apply to the problem at hand, you can tackle each thing that, as we've pointed out, takes work. Blocks take work. Fears take work. I dare not look at this thing, this script, this belief, because, oh my God, my world might fall apart. Everything I believe might just come to shreds.
Yeah, I think we all have those situations in which we're like, I know this is a problem. I just also know that I can't deal with it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only so much energy to go around at any given time. Now, that's not fate. That's just your reading on the meter, that point, that time. But I confess to a certain extent that I am a little suspicious of too much duality, too much separation in the continuum between mental energy, emotional energy, physical energy. If I, for whatever value of I you like, am the tune, and this is the instrument, the instrument's got to move things. Processes in the brain and in the endocrine system have got to express themselves. If not, this song doesn't get sung.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this may just be my kink, but I tend to get itchy between the shoulder blades when I hear duality creep into discussions of this type. Now, I will really confess as a martial artist that this leaves me at a loss to talk about chi at one level, which is okay. I don't have to have the right explanation to perceive the event is real and work in it and with it and have it work in and with and through me.
Yep. Yeah, I share your feelings on the you know, this delineation factor, but I also struggle to figure out how do we talk about these things meaningfully in a world where these constructs of duality are just so ever present. And it's challenging and it's hard because we've been trained to do that so readily.
We also speak an object-oriented language.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get around that. But I have to say, I totally agree with you about watching drunks in the ER or in the psych ward. That brought back some sometimes fond memories.
Yeah, but the point that I wanted to underline there is that I from long personal experience, I cannot give any purchase to the notion that the mind sits over here
Mhm.
and the body, including the brain, sits over here, and that the mind somehow can exercise supremacy.
Absolutely not.
And if I didn't have the ER to teach me that, I have 2 years of being under heavy metal chemotherapy 4 days a week to teach me that.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, I think of when you organize body, emotions, mind has the least control, especially conscious mind. Trying to do anything with your conscious mind only works when everything else is agreeing with you. And on those days when your liver says, I'm going to go on strike today, your mind is not going to be functioning the way it's supposed to be.
Yep. Or even your blood sugar.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I know when I was first diagnosed as a diabetic, before I got my blood sugar under control, I had a friend who we'd spend a lot of time together, and she would always know when my blood sugar was off. And she could tell because my temper would change. I would be more volatile, easier to anger. And she'd look at me and say, have you checked your blood sugar lately? And oftentimes I would then check it and find that it was high and have to go out and spend an hour riding hard on my bicycle to bring it back down.
Bill says hangry. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, um, yeah, I'm learning a bit about that right now around like how hormones and cognitive function interplay. And yeah, I mean, I do not have diabetes or anything of that nature going on, but I definitely think that something is in need of attention so that I can improve my cognitive function and stuff. And that's going to be a holistic thing to work on for me. Yeah.
I wonder whether looking at it as an ontological problem, as is there a mind, the body, etc., may not be the most productive way. Maybe a more productive thing to look at would be what type of intervention is most effective in order to get vitality up. And certainly we can have what we would consider bodily interventions like exercise. We can consider emotional interventions like certain therapeutic approaches. And we can also look at what we might consider mental interventions, so clearing up confusions and stuff like that. And sometimes it seems to me that looking at it from what I would consider a more pragmatic viewpoint might give us more clarity on something rather than trying to deal with ontological issues. But then again, this is your talk much faster. I don't want to.
So I would say to that a couple of things. One, my model is that we as humans are not ghosts in machines. We are not a mind floating around in a gelatinous mass of fat in our heads. We are a continuum. We're a field phenomena.
Yeah. I was hoping you would mention that because I do think it's important to have that, to remind ourselves of that.
Yeah. And that means everything affects everything. The field it's like if you take a bar magnet and you cut it in half, you don't get two poles, right? You get two fields, which each have the negative and positive poles. You don't get monopoles. And we're like that. We're, for lack of a better term, we have to approach this holistically, as if we are all one all one field rather than a ghost floating around in a meat machine.
Yep.
And with that said, where was I going with that thought, Noor?
I don't know anymore, man.
Yeah.
I could bring up something on the pragmatic side.
Sure.
Which is what I'm up against is I could use more vitality, but raising my vitality level spooks me. I don't know how to apply leverage, I don't know, to get enough vitality to change my vitality level or something.
What would happen if you did?
I don't know.
That might be a question to think about for a while then.
Yeah.
I will tell you that my snap reaction was I'd kill myself, which is probably not true, but it's an indication of stuff I'm up against internally.
Yeah, what would cause you to kill yourself though? Why would that be a choice?
I don't know if it's a choice, but it's definitely an internal tape.
Yeah, well, of course it's a choice. Whether you want to admit that it's a choice or not.
Excuse me, I meant I don't think it's actually a likely choice. It's just the way I keep reacting
Okay,
is to think those things.
that's a different thing.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to make clear. But maybe just sitting with it is part of the process.
Yeah, and reminding yourself that you don't have to do anything. You are not required to confront any blocks in your system. There is nobody who is going to hold a gun to your head and say, deal with these blockages.
Right, right. Yeah, that's relevant actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can sneak up on them, the ones that you want to, at your own speed, in your own time, and in ways that will not be upsetting to the system.
Yeah. I mean, sneaking up on stuff is a genuine tactic.
Yep.
And it works.
It's one that Nora and I use all the time.
Yep.
We're always sneaking up.
Getting crafty.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I think we have this vision that change needs to be aggressive and scary. And honestly, that's not necessarily true at all.
Yeah.
I
The
think
best changes are the ones that happen in such a way that you don't even notice that they've happened for a while.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite kind. When I was doing therapy, I would get calls like 3 months after I had been done with a client, and they would like call me up and say, you know, that thing that I came to you for, I just realized that I haven't done it for the last 3 months, and I never even noticed that I wasn't doing it. That's when I know that it's real change.
Yeah.
So, how do you begin to take back your energy? You all know what I'm going to tell you is the first step, right? By now, we should all know this.
Omar knows. I think Nancy knows too.
I think everybody probably knows.
Yeah.
If they haven't, I have not been doing my job as well as I thought I have. The first thing that you do is you learn to breathe consciously. Breath is the interface between mind, emotions, and body. It's the one physical process that you can most easily bring under your control. So, first thing, breathe consciously. Learn to breathe. Learn to meditate, which goes with the breathing, at least in our school. Then learn to move your body. Simple stuff.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Work on range of motion, I would say, before anything else. You know, the things that just get the synovial fluids in the joints. You know, allow the muscle fibers to fire a little bit, and then take it from there. Best to do it under the guidance of somebody who knows what the hell they're doing, because they've been there before you. Once you get beyond those certain levels, but breathe, walk, range of motion exercises. That is the beginning of creating more vitality. Y'all knew that already, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's telling you anything new here. Zainab, you're so quiet. What do you think? Cannot hear you.
Yes.
Now I can hear you. Love
So
that
you get
carpet
the,
behind you,
yeah. Yeah, this is a nice one. It makes sense. The only thing I would actually have a bit confusion is how where to use that vitality, which we were talking, going through some of the bits, and how to get the energy back from the centers which are taking all the energy.
Well, I'll give you a practical thing.
Yeah.
If you have a high level of vitality, you will more easily make sales with your rugs.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it has to do with the laws of entrainment. The laws of entrainment say that the oscillator with the greater amplitude will be the one that is entrained with. If you have two oscillating bodies, the weaker one will always begin to follow the stronger one. Does that make sense?
Yes, somehow. So weaker and stronger as in?
The one with the less vitality will follow the one with the greater vitality in this case. So when you are talking with a potential client and your energy is very, very high, they will tend to be pulled into your sphere. Also,
yes.
You will make better art when your vitality is high. You've probably already noticed this.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, and do you feel that it's easier to get into flow when your vitality is more accessible?
Who are you asking?
You.
Oh, the answer is, of course, yes.
Yeah, so I would think that when it comes to being creative and things like that, it's easier to jump into that state when you have more juices flowing, as it were, energetically. Yeah.
Sure. If you have to fight to be there, all the energy you're fighting with to be there keeps you from doing what you came there to do.
Mm.
If I've got crap for energy, it's not a good day for me to write tanka.
No.
It's not a good day for me to try and work on some nature photography. It's not a good day for me to do 3D modeling. You just, wad all that up and just set it aside.
Yeah. Do you find that doing art can help you in certain circumstances increase your vitality, Dr. Bill?
No, but I need to slide a card under there.
Okay. Yeah.
Writing Tonka doesn't enhance my vitality in any particular fashion.
Mm.
Nature photography, I come to there to be in the moment for beauty's sake. It doesn't enhance vitality. However, if I'm clicking okay, it doesn't have to be brilliant, but I'm clicking okay when I'm in the ring with a sword, then it starts to synergize, where it starts okay, and as the time I spend with the sword and the person I'm playing with goes on, I click and I click and I get better and I get better, and then the energy rises and the vitality rises. And I consider my time with the sword every bit as much an art as I do my photography or my 3D modeling or my medicine for that matter.
Mm.
But I would say that walks us back to the point that no, we don't want to be dualists, but phenomenologically, not pragmatically necessarily, but phenomenologically, I have multiple demonstrations that strongly argue to me that the experience of physical energy and physical energization and vitality then does flow upstream as a foundation, necessary but not sufficient, but certainly necessary. And I cannot help but think of how much fun it is that we are all sitting here so quietly in a talk on vitality.
Yeah, I mean, I was mentioning too much talk coming into this, like, wow, isn't it ironic that we're doing a talk on vitality on a day when we're feeling a little, a little wound down, and maybe that's all the more reason to talk about it right now.
I would say so, because the situation in the world today is generally de-energizing in my experience. It will steal all of your energy if you let it.
Mm-hmm.
The trick
Yes.
is not to let it.
Yeah. How are you doing, Zoha?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the quietness that's been happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In your life or in this talk or both or?
Oh, in life, as in
Yeah.
the situation that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
think that
understand
makes
it's
sense.
harder.
Yeah.
It's harder for different cities and countries.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, even in the same building, people are having very different experiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it's completely okay. I mean, I experience this too, in that I feel stressed, but I'm also enjoying the fact that it is quieter. It is less hectic here in LA as a result of quarantine and such, but I understand that, you know, I can enjoy that and also feel a bit constrained as well. I mean, that's my personal experience. Yeah.
Yes. Feel like there is less agenda from outside
Right.
and gives more room to work from inside, at
Yeah.
least for me.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to follow up on something that you were saying. If I understood you correctly, you're saying that when you function well in your sword games, that puts you in a state of flow and gives you more vital energy. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's for Bill, right?
Yes. I mean,
that implies that flow is something that I can mechanically make happen. And that's not my experience of it. But what I would say is that if I have decent physicality going into the day, and I'm not totally achy, joints totally shot, totally a wreck, but if I have even decent physicality entering in, the art of engaging the sword and engaging the other players in that space increases and lifts up and the water rises in the well. Okay? That's more elusive than it is a accurate description, but this is a case where I think illusion is the more accurate descriptor because it's a very non-linear, non-logical, experiential sense to it. I have decent structure, I have decent function. I get in there, I play. Mm-hmm. At some point, energy starts to lift first. And I can feel more glide in my stride and dip in my hip. And as that moves on, at some indefinable point, to quote Bruce Lee, the thing happens.
The thing.
And then I've got flow, or I am in flow, or flow is me. It stops being really fruitful to talk about it in dualistic terms. I can steal from Rogue One, but it's actually not a bad formulation at that point. I am one with the way, and the way flows through me. And that's how it is lived, not just felt. If I stop to think about it for a little while, it can actually sustain itself to being pushed at a little with just the cold light of rational thought. But at some point, you want to just dive right back in and let it keep flowing. So the best I think I can say, Ilmar, is that from the outside examining what I've said, I think it is inevitable that you will put it in causalistic, dualistic, linear, this, then this, then this, then this. But in fact, in the lived moment, again, phenomenologically, it blossoms.
And I have no disagreement with that. I mean, I have a somewhat similar experience of that when I do tango.
I suspected as much.
Yeah, you did.
I thought so too.
But I had actually a more practical target in mind, and that is, it seems like exercising physical competence by itself seems to be vitality increasing. And I was in particularly wondering, with your experience in emergency rooms, is there something that can be done with a patient to have them exercise physical capability to whatever degree they're capable, which would be of vitality increasing effect? Or the other side of the question is, what the hell do you do in an emergency room to increase somebody's vitality? But I was wondering whether, physical competence in itself might not be a gateway to this, exercising the physical competence itself.
Okay, so first of all, in emergency medicine, things are very boring until they're terrifying.
No, they're not. Yes.
No. Yeah, they're very boring until they're terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're boring, there isn't much space to engage a patient whom has come in from the regular world, is almost certainly a dualist, is predisposed not to listen to booga booga, sure hell not in a scientific emergency room.
Mm.
When there are certain stress points, there is an opportunity really not to do precisely the exercise of vitality, but the exercise of the beginning of the notion that they might have agency and they're not just trapped.
Mm.
And that is paradoxically going right back to the breath. When I have somebody who is in significant amounts of pain, and they're going to be, and topical or injectable local anesthetics are just not going to cut it, but we've got to do the thing. Engaging them briefly, eye in, voice dropping, getting softer, telling them we're going to take an extra moment. What I want them to do is just think about how that air feels going in through the nose and just out through the mouth. That's right. Now sit with me. Let's do it again. And out. One more time with me. In. And out. Now I'm going to start doing the thing. And I know it's going to be not pleasant. It's going to be tough. What I want you to do is don't pay attention to me particularly. I'm not going to sneak up on your stuff. I'm telling you I'm doing it. But I want you to stay with that sensation there and that sensation there. Stay with the breath and breathe. Okay. One more breath. You'll be ready? Good. Bim. And in an urgent but not absolutely crash emergent place, taking just that little extra time to engage the patient, to entrain the patient, sure, but in doing so specifically give them just the breath, because I know that's going to work. Pays tremendous dividends. They get through the experience. They feel like they had a way to be part of engaging with and getting through the experience. They weren't just meat strapped to a table.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody paid attention to them
Mm-hmm.
and gave them a tool, and then they were be able to do something for their own fate.
So there seems to be two things going on there. One is that you're suggesting them to get into more of a causal position, in other words, such just simply being the effect of whatever happened to them, they begin to take some cause over their own situation. And the other seems to be that you're directing their attention to something like, in this case, breathing. And I suspect both of those probably would be positively effective.
It's quick and dirty. I don't have the time to take an expensive, extensive work with them on breathing. But pretty much everybody can feel their nose. And they can feel the air going past their lips. Pretty much everybody can. If they can't, then I should be moving faster and doing some very aggressive things. So those of you who live in the southeastern United States will know Publix, the great supermarket chain that is famous for BOGO, buy one, get one. I shop at Publix. I'll always take a twofer.
Yeah.
Yep. That reminds me that one of the places that I have seen really good examples of group flow is in the ER during the really terrifying times.
Yeah.
Not every time, but a lot.
And it is remarkable, in my educated opinion, how often the lead team member is the one who can either summon that or impede it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say that either the doc or the charge nurse, depending on who has the most dominant personality, will be the one who sets that off.
Okay, how are you setting it off? Are you modeling it, or are you having a technique to do that, or just basically?
I don't think that there is any conscious way to do it. In the times that I've experienced it, my charge nurse, the charge nurse that I worked under, was trained in the 1930s in a Catholic hospital when that was more like being in boot camp. And then she went from there to a MASH unit in Europe in World War II. She was the most unflappable human being I've ever met, because she was doing shit with bombs dropping around her.
Yep.
And she would walk in and the room would just calm down. And she had that ability to just bring us all into line.
Yep. Yep. For my part, I would not hesitate to describe it specifically as entrainment.
Yeah.
That I have, when I walk into the room, I have seen enough people try to get dead fast that I know absolutely well what's hot and what's not. I can be upset because they're not responding well, but what I'm not going to be is shocked or surprised. Hell, I'm a science fiction fan. Even if the chest burster comes out, I'm just grabbing pickups and catching that sucker by the neck. I know what to do with that. Consequently, when I went in the room, it's like, okay, this is what we got. Very good. Let's do this. Okay, fine. Let's do this. Right. Let's do this. Okay, please, could you do that? Because I can even, that piece is not right. Please, could you just humor me? Do that. And if I get excited, it will be because I see an opportunity to intervene and I've got a gotcha on disease. So a team that's worked with me more than twice, if they hear that rising, smiling, I got you now, they start to groove on it because they think they're about to see a hat trick, and as often as not, they do. So the experience of being led by a very knowledgeable person whom I can lose a patient, but I'm not losing my shit.
It's got to be a very knowledgeable person who you can trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I deliberately, consciously, with practice, use communications and entrainment skills to bring people along.
You wouldn't be interested in doing a tutorial on Trump by any chance, would you? Because that's the kind of leadership that would be very helpful in handling.
Why would I waste my time? Ilmar, I wouldn't waste my time giving the current president of the United States a tutorial on leadership skills any more than I would waste my time giving most journalisms nowadays a tutorial on responsible rhetoric.
Because we're in an emergency room situation, that's why. And if we're
And they
speaking
would
about it,
they would think that means bupkis.
that means what?
Bupkis.
Nothing.
Nothing in Jersey.
Oh, okay, sorry. Not following that allusion.
So interestingly, to just touch on the fencing thing again, because I've had the same experience, but I've thought about it a lot, and I've noticed that there are certain criteria that really work better for me than others. One is I have to be in good physical condition and have a certain base level of energy. Second, I have to find an opponent who is better than me, but not super better than me. And then I have to be able to push myself to the point where I can match them and then surpass them. And if I do that, and it doesn't happen with people who I know I can beat. It only happens with people I go, I'm not sure if I can take this person. I'm not sure if I can get the points on them. But when I do, then I hit that flow state. And the most interesting thing is that when I really get it, I will not make touches that I know I can make just to keep it going, because it's so much fun.
Yeah, you don't want to leave.
No, because if you're fighting a one touch match, you touch them and it's over. So I think we have solved all the world's problems now.
Well, not all of them, because I still have declined to go tutor the current president of the United States. So.
Yeah, there is no hope for that. I was actually talking about that last night. He has failed at the one thing that it was his job to do, and he has fallen flat on his face. And that's to unite the country in time of disaster or emergency. You don't do that by throwing tantrums.
No. Or by misleading people or deliberately lying to them with malicious intent, etc., etc.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or suggesting that just maybe shooting of disinfectant might have some positive effect.
Well, I can think of a few people I would like to give that gift to.
Yes.
Well, yeah, they can try it first.
Yep.
Tell us how it goes.
I've got a little list. They never will be missed.
Yeah, but still, it seems to me that, I'm at the moment, I'm rather entertained by the emergency room analogy, because it seems to me, as a country, we are kind of in an emergency room situation right now. And some of the skills that you're talking about, as far as leading the team in an emergency room operation, would be extremely useful to see at the national level. The same exhibition of competence, of entrainment, of calmness, of unifying. Those are all, I think, very important, very critical skills.
Yep. And all the people who have those skills have either been fired or have left or are afraid to say anything.
Or more to the point, it's very, very difficult to rise to the level of electoral availability.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you who know me a little better than just the face on the screen are invited to contemplate what odds it would take for me to win even election to a governorship under the current state of electoral politics, much less
Sure,
be
you couldn't even
nominated
get
for
dog
president.
water, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I struggle a little with the emergency department as an analogy for the situation the country is in. And that may be because I am Captain Concrete and I know the emergency department environment so very well. And I can point to the 50 dozen things that make a country different than an ER. Having said that, I will agree that, well, to borrow from my Navy days, we have young officers in the Navy, and they're starting to move up the food chain. They have mandatory classes on how to do the business of being an officer. And these classes are described under the umbrella all the way up the line of leadership and management. Because there are managerial skills for how to organize complex processes and bring them to fruition. And then there are ways you lead people. And the two skill sets are complementary. There is less overlap than you would think. And you've got to have them both in hand to successfully be. And again, English kind of slips the card. It says, leadership is important. Well, true leadership requires those management skills as well. We should talk about L&M. We should talk about it reflexively when we look for people to lead our cities, our counties, our states, our country. Leadership and management. Both. Now all you get off my lawn.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to throw in something about the Trump situation,
All right.
which is that one of the reasons people like Trump, those who like him, is his vitality level. And I don't know what it would take to, well, God knows not get him to follow, but to have enough vitality to be attractive to his followers.
Yeah, I don't really think he has that high of a vitality level. What he has is anger.
Okay.
His anger is masking his lack of vitality.
Okay.
And the people who are really attracted to him are fearful and angry. So he's mirroring them. They all want to shake their fists at them damn libertards and yell because the country ain't what it used to be, and all of them dang dark-skinned people are moving in and taking our jobs, like picking lettuce, because all the white folks want to go out and pick lettuce and they can't because the Latinos have that like locked up.
Mm-hmm.
He said with his tongue firmly planted in his teeth.
Yeah.
So I don't think Trump has all that much vitality. I think that he masks his lack of vitality with anger, which is something that people do.
What else can be a mask? So anger is one.
Anger is one. Pretty much any intense emotionality can mask a lack of vitality, but anger seems to be the biggest one.
Very possibly because it is the closest to unmediated feeling. And let me unpack that. And I won't promise that this schema will be what I use in 2 years. But today, if I think about the continuum between how that hurts and punching somebody out, what I'm currently using is feeling, and that is the experienced sensation. What it feels like when a hammer drops on your toe. The nausea and palpitations in the chest you get, which you then associate with being scared. And so on and so on and so on. Step 2 is emotion, where you actually take that experiential state and you put a name on it. Oh, I'm scared. No, you're not. You're Dave. You're Ilmar. You are experiencing these literally feelings, things you feel. And now you're adding the layer of emotion onto them, that processing layer. And then there's acting out. Because I promise if you're not aware of the fact that this is a discrete set of processes and there are steps at which you can say, whoa, Pilgrim, you will flow from the physical sensation through to the label that your scripts put on it, right through to the action your scripts tell you ought to take. Anger is the easiest, I think, of the label sets to attach onto high adrenal fight or flight states. You get hurt big time. You get a big adrenaline surge. You've got somebody pointing a large gun at you, and it gets much larger when they do that, you know. All barrels are made of rubber. They expand when they're pointed up your face. And boom, there goes the adrenaline. And that can process as fear. But in order to be scared of something, there has to be a layer of further processing going on, the of something. But if I hit your hand with a hammer, the first thing you're going to do is hurt. And the anger swims right up from that. So I think anger is the one that's the most prevalent and the most common because it is the most easy based on the way our body is shaped. Again, ask me in 2 years. I may have a different story.
Yeah. I mean,
And what if like, grief is not a cover-up very often on this stuff also? I mean, some people go into anger, some people sort of essentially collapse into grief. And it seems to me that in both cases, it's an avoidance of dealing with the present situation.
I don't think you're wrong. I will just put a little cocktail flag in this that if we're talking about what masquerades as vitality, grief sure doesn't.
Nope.
Because as you said, you collapse.
Right.
Yeah, people who are angry can appear to be vital from the outside, and you don't notice what goes on afterwards. You know, you look at Trump, yeah, he's supposed to be all vital, but he's like 80 pounds overweight, right? Can barely walk across the room if you watch him actually walk. You watch him out playing golf, and his physicality is very, very limited. He doesn't really have vitality. He's stealing from his emotional center to try and make everything work.
Yeah, to use that most painful to admit, but yeah, I still own it. Deep childhood script. I can take him.
Yeah. Well, we have gone over time again. Isn't that a surprise?
Yeah. But oops, yes. Oh well. No, this has been I'm glad we all got to share in this together. And yep, I know we're all feeling a little bit low key, it seems, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think we could just, to me, this felt like an exploration of that, you know.
Yep.
So, yeah, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. So I'm glad you guys made it. Yeah.
Keep breathing.
Yes. That's the one thing we can all do.
I'll do that as soon as I finish that call. Ryan Reynolds wanted that expression back, I guess.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for contributing and for showing up despite our little bit of technical difficulties to start with. Yep.
So, say goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Gracie.
Good afternoon.
And we will see you all next time.
Yeah.